Hello people of YouTube, it's Deepak here, and welcome to Alliance Space Guard. This is my second demo video following straight on from the first one, where we previously undocked and entered an orbit around moon number 1, which is in turn around Alpha 4 planet in the Draconis, the 210 Draconis system. So that's where we are right now. I'm going to continue this demonstration by showing you how we could actually fly from the moon, which is over here, to the planet here, Alpha 4, establish an orbit, and then dock with a station that's in orbit around this planet. So that's what I'm going to show you today. But first, standard disclaimers, as I gave in the previous video. This is an unreleased pre-alpha version of Alliance Space Guard. It's not currently available for public download. I'm very lucky and privileged to be a member of the test team, which is how I've got my hands on a build of the game. So anyway, as such, with it being a pre-alpha build of the game, there could be bugs, and there are definitely missing features and systems at this time. But we've got plenty of toys with which to carry out this mission in any case. So this is a nice, straightforward example of how to use the flight planning systems on board the ship, and how to do a main engine burn now that we've got the fusion reactor running. So I'm going to take the game out of pause. Let's center down on our own ship. Here we are, where we left off, and we've got a bunch of different flight planning tools here on the top left of the navigation display. I'm going to make use of the automatic flight planner. If I click on this, it will open up the automatic flight planner, and this is a tool that we can use in order to basically string together a bunch of maneuvers to achieve a stable orbit around an object of our choosing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Alpha 4, you can see all of its details here, and I'm going to click here to set that as the target. And what we've done is we've created a parking orbit, this purple orbit here around the planet. That's our target, that's where we're going to do. We now need to tell the system what our starting condition is, and the flight planner has the ability to wind time forwards and backwards and do all kinds of things. I'm just going to tell it use our current position and the current time. So that's our starting condition. We're currently in a stable orbit around Alpha 4 Moon 1, and we want to go to a parking orbit around Alpha 4. And we can then set a delay. I'm going to set a start delay of 20 minutes. That should give us plenty of time to get ready. And I'm now going to tell the planner that that's what I want to do. I want to begin my maneuvers in 20 minutes. And now I can hit plan. And it's generated a complete plan for everything it wants us to do. So we've got our first maneuver here, which will be in 29 minutes. If I double click, it will take us to that maneuver. As we reach this point in the orbit, we're going to do a burn away from the moon, and that will cause us to exit the moon's gravity well. We then have our second maneuver here, where we'll start to enter an orbit, and then maneuver number 3, which will be chained right after that one, will get us into a circularized orbit. I almost couldn't say that. We can now press this button to transmit all those details into the autopilot. So if I go back to the helm now, we can now see, actually before things get away from themselves, let's pause. If I focus down on this panel here, we have information about the complete flight plan. So it confirms we have 3 maneuvers, it confirms the delta V, and if we had jumps that we were going to do, it would confirm those here as well. We've got our estimated time. It's going to be 16 hours and 37 minutes to do this transit. We've got kind of the short-term plan across the bottom here. So over the course of the next 44 and a bit minutes, we're going to do nothing, and then do a burn, and then do nothing. And then over the longer term, that's our burn there. We leave the moon's orbit here, and then we do 2 burns at the end. So maneuver number 1, the one that's coming up, it gives us all the details about what we're going to need to do. We'll have to have the reactor up at 44 gigawatts in order to achieve this burn, and we're going to do a burn for 8 minutes and 5 seconds. So, with all of that, let's take a little look at the advisory log. It's confirming to us that a new flight plan was loaded. That's great. And it's now giving us the details of maneuver number 1. We've got maneuver number 1 starting in 20 minutes. So if I'm going to select this, we then have the option to set an alarm to remind us when to bring the reactor power up, because we don't want to power up the reactor too early, especially at these kinds of high power levels, because it generates a lot of heat of course it's consuming fuel and it's a lot of wear and tear on the different components. So the computer will calculate for us when we should begin the power-up. If I press this button... Oh, actually that didn't work, maybe because I'm in pause. There we go. It says we should power up in 5 minutes, that sounds a bit right. So I'm going to acknowledge that, and then the last thing is, it suggests we open up the before maneuver checklist, which I'm going to do now.
Checklist. Plan the reactor state for the maneuver.
Okay, we've planned it, we've set the alarm. And now we're just going to wait for that alarm to go off. So I can set time acceleration and it will interrupt my time acceleration when the alarm goes off, which is now. It's now telling me to do the power up. I've got to be at 44 gigawatts, so I'll set the reactor controller all the way up to 44 gigawatts. Estimated time to power up is 14.5 minutes. So that's now acknowledged.
Power set.
Okay, and the maneuver itself will be in 14 minutes. Let's accelerate time until we get there. You can see it's all approaching.
Thrust mode as required.
Thrust mode is required. I can adjust this to put the thrust mode in maneuver main, and I can put my aim into maneuver, or I can actually just go into the flight plan screen here and click on each of the two things to immediately set them to the suggested mode. So I can now acknowledge that. Reactor power is coming up. We've got 7.5 minutes until the maneuver. I'll just accelerate time again.
Reactor power checked.
Okay, we have the reactor power level we need. A few seconds till we begin, and burn is about to start.
Before maneuver checklist complete.
Okay, checklist is complete. We're in the burn, and this burn is going to last just over 8 minutes. And here we've got a constantly computed deviation in position and deviation in velocity, which is going to let us know how well we're doing at maintaining this flight plan. And accelerate time until we get to the end of this burn. Actually, can I bring up... I should actually bring up the after maneuver checklist. Let's do that. After maneuver
checklist.
There we go. We'll follow that as well. Checklists galore. Okay, we're coming to the end of this first maneuver. And you can see here my little navigational display that we're now in an orbit that will exit the moon's gravity. Engines are coming down. That. Burn is complete.
Engines no thrust.
Engines no thrust. We've got almost 16 hours until the next maneuver, so I'm now going to set the reactor state all the way back down to the idle level that we were using before, which is 500 megawatts. Confirmed. Thrust mode to idle.
Selected. Check navigation accuracy.
I'm actually going to set the roll mode to hold as well. We don't need that doing anything. Confirm that navigational accuracy is still good. Yep, we're here in the blue. We have a 0.3 meter navigational accuracy. That's perfectly acceptable.
After maneuver checklist complete.
Okay, that maneuver is now complete. I can now clear that notification. And if I take a little look in our navigational display and center back on the ship, you can see that here we are. We're on our way out of the orbit of that moon now, quite happily. If I check the external view, we can see those radiators got nice and hot during the course of that burn. Great, okie dokie. So now I'm going to accelerate time until we get to the next maneuver. We're going to get a warning in just a moment that we leave the sphere of influence of the moon. That's perfectly acceptable. See the time counting down to the next maneuver here. Okay, planned entry into Alpha 4's sphere of influence. Acknowledged. There we go. So, orbital reference is now the planet. You'll see that it's now drawn a brand new orbit for us that takes us around the planet. I'll clear that, we're perfectly happy. We've got a periapsis of 5.3 million meters and an apoapsis of 71.4 million meters. So of course, we're going to wait until we get a bit closer to the planet and then bring this orbit in a little bit. So, 11.5 hours. Let's accelerate time. Get ourselves to the next maneuver. You can see the reactor's all the way back down at 0.5 gigawatt now, and the radiators are nice and cool again. Should be getting close to the planet now. Oh, there we go. Yep, we're approaching. You can see all the different stations and satellites whizzing around it. Here we are. Next maneuver, I'm going to set the alarm to bring the reactor up. That's going to be in about 45 minutes. I'll acknowledge those maneuvers, and I'll also open the before maneuver checklist. So that we're definitely ready with that.
Plan the reactor state for the maneuver.
Reactor state is planned. We're going to need a 40 gigawatt setting on the main reactor. So I'm going to wait for the alarm to bring that power up. There's the alarm. Check the reactor power. I'm going to set 40 gigawatts. And acknowledge.
Reactor power set.
Okay, so we've now got 14 and a bit minutes until we actually begin that first maneuver, which will establish our orbit around the planet. Let's accelerate time again until we're there.
Thrust mode as required.
Thrust mode is required. Set maneuver and maneuver main. We're in the green here and waiting for the power to come up, and I'll acknowledge that. Okay, just a little bit over 7 minutes now. Accelerate time once again. See, fusion power is confirmed on the thrust controller and in the flight planner, and also in the power plant summary information down here as well. Power's coming up.
Reactor power checked. Ready to thrust.
Okay, power's in the green. And waiting for the main engines.
Under acceleration. Before maneuver checklist complete.
Okay, before maneuver checklist is complete. Okay, so this one's 9 and a bit minutes. I can also press this button to peek at the next maneuver. So the next maneuver will be also 9 and a bit minutes. Let's accelerate time. Okay, a few seconds to go. And maneuver 3 is a chained maneuver, so it will begin almost immediately after this one. So I'm just going to leave the reactor as it is. Yep, just a few seconds, and then we do maneuver 3, which will circularize us. I have a very hard time with that word, it would seem. And you can see here the orbit is established, but it's a little bit eccentric. Okay, here we go. Final burn, and that will get us established in our orbit. That's a good few minutes, so I'm going to accelerate time. You can see here this orbit's becoming much more circular.
After maneuver checklist.
Okay, let's get ready. You can see here our positional and velocity accuracy is coming down as we approach the end of the burn. Looks like we're going to be pretty close to what was planned. And there we go. Not perfect, but good enough for our purposes, because we're going to be doing another burn shortly in any case.
Reactor state.
Right, I'm actually not going to go through the rest of this checklist because I'm immediately going to plan further maneuvers. And I'm not going to bring the reactor energy level down yet, because we might be starting another maneuver quite soon. So, let's basically clear all of this just now. This is the parking orbit we've gotten ourselves into. Let's now go into the flight editor, which allows us to manually create a flight plan with maneuvers of our choosing. I'm going to choose to visit Orbital Space Station 15, 18, 19... let's go to this one. So I've chosen this particular station. I'm going to set that as the target. And now using the cursor on my current kind of flight path, I'm going to choose a point which is about 20 minutes from now. So I've selected this point, and you'll notice that as I move this point around, the flight planner automatically repositions everything to be where it would be at that time. So anyway, let's go 20 minutes in the future. I'm going to choose the menu, and I'm going to choose the navigational toolbox, and I'm going to insert an approach towards my target. So I'm going to choose that. I've got a whole bunch of values that I can adjust. I'm going to leave all of these at the default values, because these are the values that Orbital Traffic Control will expect us to be using. So I'm going to set that, and the system has now calculated what I need to do to get there. You can see I'm going to go around, then I'm going to do a manoeuvre here, which will bring me in, and I'm going to do 2 further burns to get me into an orbit that will have me coast towards OSS 19. Now the thing is, after I've completed this manoeuvre, I will be in a low speed approach towards the space station, because before I get to 100 kilometers, I need to have shut down the reactor, and at that stage I then don't have the availability of the main drive. I only have the availability of the MRUs. So, you know, I need to make sure that I'm in a situation where I can shut down the reactor, but I can also stop myself before I reach OSS 19. So, with all of that in mind, let's load it into the controller and take a little look at the flight plan. Okay, we've got 1 hour and 37 minutes, so with that in mind I can bring the reactor power level down to idle, and I can clear that I've loaded a new flight plan. And at this stage I'm going to contact... actually, which OSS was it? Where am I going? I'm going to go back to F3. What was our target? OSS 19. Okay, so with that in mind I'm going to contact OSS 19. There we go, I've set him as my relay, and I'm going to request approach information to OSS 19, and we're going to dock at military cargo. Send that request. Okay, and I'm not getting a response right now, which might mean that I'm not actually within range of OSS 19. So what we can do, I can set relay to automatic, contact the closest station, and actually repeat that message. So let's clear that. Yeah, so we're going to use OSS 19, military cargo. It's actually not letting me send that message. I might need to wait for the previous one to time out, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm having to communicate via OSS 15 in order to get messages to them. That's great. It's asking me when is my ETA, so I'm going to load the information from my flight planner into this communication and send it to them. We are cleared, and I'll acknowledge that. And they've given me a window of ± 10 minutes, which is good, because I might not be amazingly accurate with my calculations. We'll see how it goes. So we're going to accelerate time until I get my reminder about the maneuver. Here we go. Reminder for maneuver number 1. I'm going to set a timer to bring the reactor up, and I'm going to open the before maneuver checklist.
Plan the reactor state for the maneuver.
Reactor state is planned. Let's accelerate. Let's accelerate the time again. Timer's coming down. We're going to need 40 gigawatts again for this next burn. Check reactor power. 40 gigawatts set.
Reactor power set.
Just a few minutes to go. Let's accelerate time again.
Thrust mode as required.
Okay, going to set the attitude and thrust modes. And acknowledge. Okay, we're orienting the ship to do our braking burn. Accelerate time again. Fusion power's coming up.
Reactor power checked. Ready to thrust.
There we go.
Under acceleration.
So this is our first burn. This will start bringing us into the lower orbit, which will bring us nice and close to the station we're going to dock with. And yeah, before maneuver checklist is complete. accelerate time again, because this one will take a few minutes. Here we go. That maneuver is about to end. After maneuver checklist. Okay, now we're in 40 minutes to the next one, so let's set the reactor to an idle state.
Reactor state.
Checked.
Set and checked. Thrust mode to idle. Selected. Check navigation accuracy.
We're still at 0.3 of a meter accuracy.
Check.
That's perfectly acceptable.
After maneuver checklist complete.
Okay, so if we go into the F3 view, you can see we've done that burn now. We're now going to coast down to this lower orbit. We'll then do a burn to set us up in this lower orbit, and we'll then do what's called a glide into OSS 19's sphere of influence, at which point we'll do our kind of low energy arrival. So let's accelerate that time again. There we go. Maneuvers 2 and 3. Let's set our timer for the reactor. Let's bring up the checklist. And we're ready for that one.
Plan the reactor state for the maneuver. Checked.
Once again, let's accelerate time. See, we're getting closer. Getting into a lower orbit. Beep beep. Set the reactor power. I need 40 gigawatts again. Let's bring it up to 40 and
Reactor
acknowledge.
Power set.
And then again, accelerate time.
Thrust mode as required.
Okay. Attitude and thrust modes engaged. So we're about to do 2 burns, and then we'll do the interesting bit, our approach to the station and a docking.
Reactor power checked. Ready to thrust.
This time we'll see it from the external view.
Under acceleration. Before maneuver checklist complete.
But that's us under main engine thrust. This burn is just a few more minutes, so I'll accelerate time. And then we've got a chained maneuver, number 3, which will get us into just the right orbit. Okay, just a few seconds to go of this burn. Then we'll have a slight pause, and then our final burn. Confirmed, we're still in the correct mode. This one's a 4-minute and 20-second burn, and it'll be our final main engine burn before we arrive at the station. Okay, accelerate time again. Okay.
After maneuver checklist.
And then I'll open the checklist for the arrival glide.
10 seconds to burn stop.
Okay, main engine's off. Burn complete. Now what I'm going to do, because this is not absolutely perfect, I'm actually going to do a little adjustment here. So I'm going to do a 10-minute track and engage that, just to make sure that we get the positional and velocity accuracy right down to where we want it to be. Okay. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. There we go. Okay, that's it. That's bringing us into the correct region now. We can accelerate time a little bit until we get that where we want it to be. Oh, okay, we've got our OTC message. Please shut down reactor as suitable. Okay, right, fair enough. This is going to be close enough. I'm going to set everything to idle. And we're going to set the reactor state. Now for this, we don't set the idle state, we set it all the way down to 200 megawatts, because that's the level we use before a standard shutdown. And navigational accuracy is still good. Okay, so, did I confirm that? Acknowledged. Shutting down reactor. So, clear that, and we've got a checklist for approach glide. Let's open that.
Check the navigation accuracy.
That's done. Bringing reactor power down to 200 megawatts.
Systems approach configuration. Reactor power to 200 megawatts.
Just going to wait for that to come down. Actually, I'll bring up the reactor panel itself. Here we go. Power coming down. We'll let it stabilize at 200 megawatts.
Ready for shutdown.
Ready for shutdown.
Shut the reactor down.
Press the button.
Confirmed.
Okay, now the reactor controller will do a controlled shutdown. It's reducing pressure in the exhaust, and now it's venting. You'll see these systems power off in just a moment, and the whole thing will go dark. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Reactor offline.
Okay, all sections offline.
Supply off.
We will now close the valves here for the fusion fuels.
Oxygen supply to at least one section.
We'll get the oxygen supply ready for the fuel cells, because we'll now be on fuel cell power only. I'm going to fire up fuel cells 2 and 3, just so that we remain powered.
Flight controls. MRU suggested power allocation, linear.
Okay. Wants us to reduce the power allocation for the maneuvering reaction units, because we don't have very much power available now. I'm going to reduce the rotational setting as well.
Checked.
I'll tick these off.
Thrust control mode to approach.
Okay, to approach.
Selected. Approach reference object.
I don't have a reference object yet. Give me one. Cleared direct to the flaring zone. Acknowledged. It's not giving me my object. Let's try clicking on it again. Not working. Maybe I'm not close enough yet. OSS 19.
Set.
There we go. Set.
Approach navigation data.
Okay, I'm going to choose the same radio I used at my departure station for navigational data. I'm going to download
Received.
all the data about the restricted
Thrust
areas and
control
arrival and
engaged.
so on. Thrust control
Checked.
engaged.
Attitude aim access to ship. Checked. Attitude aim to approach.
Okay.
Selected.
Aim and roll to approach. Okay, and then we'll get a call at 20 kilometers. Okay, estimated time of arrival, just over 17 minutes. Okay, let's accelerate time until then. So we're just coasting now with the reactor offline. We'll need to keep an eye on our smezies, make sure we don't drain too much on the way in. Okay, we just got a message there. We've just entered orb space. That's their kind of controlled area. And we should get a mention fairly soon.
20 kilometers to arrival point.
Kilometers to arrival
Orb
point.
mode to approach.
Okay, so nav orb mode to approach. Set.
Navigation source.
Navigational source is on automatic, and we've got a pretty high level of accuracy. We're good.
Checked. Flare R alpha Z coordinates.
Okay, we've got the data from Orbital traffic control about the maneuver it wants us to do. I'm going to load that into the autopilot. I'm going to acknowledge this log message, and then I'm going to... Oh, yeah, I've already set that.
Checked.
Okay, I'm waiting for my flaring cue now. Set flare. Prepare to engage. Okay. So, what's our distance? Yeah, we're pretty close now. Run a bit longer. Pretty close. Very close to the station now.
Flaring cue.
There's our flaring cue.
Arrival flare.
Okay, arm for the flare and engage.
Arrival flare. Confirm.
And now we're just going to use the MRUs on internal power in order to arrest ourselves and bring us to the arrival area. I'm going to wait for it to arrest our speed just now. Flaring zone reached.
Follow traffic control instructions to docking ingress point.
Okay, cleared for a path to docking ingress point number 8. Acknowledged. And we can load that into the autopilot as well. We'll now find that we're in the correct mode. We're in path to DIP, or 8 selected. So now let's bring up our checklists for docking.
Docking checklist.
And follow this. Docking ingress point. Okay, so we need to make our way there first. So I'm going to arm and engage. Just make our way to the DIP, which is just over here. Smez still has about half charge in it. Actually, on thinking about that, how are we doing for O2? We're still okay on liquid oxygen. Docking ingress point reached.
Docking ingress point.
Do we have docking clearance?
Navigation
Cleared to dock.
accuracy.
Acknowledged.
Bright green.
Okay, navigational accuracy should be bright green. It is. We have maximum accuracy.
Arm the ship's docking port.
Arm the docking port.
Confirm.
We've got this kind of mini checklist
Arm the
here.
auto dock mode.
This is the auto dock mode.
Confirmed. Engage the auto dock mode.
Gauge.
Auto docking in progress.
Okay, the ship is now going to take us right up to the docking port. We'll accelerate time, because it does so very slowly, as you would expect.
100 meters to port. 30 meters to port. 10 meters to port. 3 meters to port.
Okay. Very close now. Matter of millimeters from the docking port.
Docked and locked.
Docked and locked.
MRUs to off.
Okay. Arrival complete. Welcome to Draconis Avenue. Okay, we are docked. So at this point, we turn off the 3 MRUs.
Thrust controller off.
Thrust control
Check.
off. Attitude control off. We now turn off our transponder.
Transponder off. Set. APUs off.
APUs off. 2 and 3 to off.
Electrical system to station power.
Okay, we're going to plug in. Actually, I've got a full checklist for this. Oh, it wants us to engage all the ties as well, so we charge everything back up.
Oxygen supply off.
Oxygen supply to off.
Checked. Hydrogen supply off. Checked. Docking checklist complete.
Okay, we have now completed a dock. So, everything looks pretty normal. And now that we're connected to the station power is going to recharge our SMES, our different SMES devices for us. Just going to have a little quick look at everything. We're looking pretty good. You know, we've consumed a small amount of fusion fuels. We used up quite a lot of the liquid oxygen, but we probably actually would have enough for another similar flight. But now that we're docked, we have the option to top all of this back up again and to recharge the SMES as well while we're here. So that's all looking pretty good. So that is the entire procedure for doing a burn. I did a transfer from the moon to the planet that it was orbiting, and I've done a docking. What I will demonstrate next time is a longer journey involving the jump drive. So that's probably the last thing that's currently in the game that I have as yet not demonstrated. So there you go. That was the whole thing. I hope you all enjoyed that. Like I said, I'll make a third video where I demonstrate the jump drive, and also, as I said before, the standard disclaimers. You know, this is a pre-alpha version of the game. There is still so much to be added. Not least of all, to mention the actual game elements, you know, the missions and the military equipment and sensors and all kinds of other stuff. As before, there may well be bugs and missing features. Nonetheless, it's already a lot of fun to play with, and I'm really looking forward to where this goes. So, if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and comment, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. See you next time.